fact or have a separate agreement, however you want to do it. I think to try to get all of that of what the concessions and architectural plan, I think you'd be chasing your tail
We're
forever.
going to have DEM approval at this point.
Right.
Exactly.
We don't have any plans.
One final point is, maybe the agreement should say the cumulative effect is 275, or in lieu of the final payment, the concession
Possible
and bathroom to the
construction.
satisfaction of the town.
Exactly.
It's like when you have to develop, affordable housing, you have to develop it or you pay a fee. Well, they're saying we'll pay a fee or we'll give you a bathroom and concessions to your satisfaction. And that way, if it can't be worked out, you're getting your 275.
Exactly.
So you should focus on, are you happy with
On the number.
275?
That's my point.
And they're willing to do the other, they give you the other option. Or if you want the other option, then you should focus on that. Say, I want something that's deliverable.
Exactly. And I think that would certainly make it easier to draft 275, provided, however, that at the town's request, such and such and such on, reasonably agreeable plans. And again, the developer has really no position on what they look like. It's up to the town. It would just be a budgetary thing to make sure we're staying in the range of the dollar amount that was discussed.
So, if I may, I would just like to make sure that additional 200, that additional money, I don't want it to be contingent on any phased development. If you're going to have 9 limited liabilities and you have 7 plans to do it, I'd like to see the money up front right away.
And the applicant, or Mr. Mancini, the Land Use Council will correct me, although the construction may be phased, the permitting would all be simultaneous, the permit issuance would all be simultaneous.
The payment is due on.
On permit issuance, regardless of when it's built.
Phasing, and we get a percentage of the
All we have to do,
275.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, is indicate the final approval won't be issued until the payment is delivered to the town.
Perfect.
Final permit. And I'm assuming Mr. Mancini would agree to that. Yeah.
Well, that's where we're going. I just want to make sure that because the terms
Make it a
discussion.
condition of final permit.
Absolutely, make it a condition of final.
I have a question for the developer. Your very first presentation to us, the number that you came up with was 287.5. Would you be willing to go there?
I think I made it clear that whatever that number was what we meant. I think we're generalizing the number. But it was the original pro forma for the one-time payment was whatever that exact number is.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's 287,500. Thank you.
So this piece now is the decommission.
Yep. Now we need to talk about decommission. This is just the bare minimum.
Mr. President, I just want to, I got to bring up one more point. I'm glad we're talking in terms of alternatives. If for any reason whatsoever the town, I know nobody wants to address this, cannot get a permit to construct these bathrooms, that's not
We still have the
continuous
cash.
money. So it's the money or the alternative payment or the deliverable in lieu of. And I'm assuming that
Right. The worst case scenario for the town is 287,500 that it spends however it sees fit, and perhaps it could get better if all the permits for the concessions and bathrooms the town wants are issued.
Thank you.
Can I say something more? So, well, it kind of goes to this, but it's not really directly to you, it's just more for us. So we're talking about the dollar value for concession stands and bathrooms, and I support that effort in terms of those facilities do need to be upgraded. But I think as we're looking at how to spend that money, we also need to come up with a plan on how to maintain our field over there as well. Because the last thing we want is to have this brand new concession stand with bathrooms and then the field is deteriorated to the fact where no one potentially would want to play. So I think as we're talking about how to spend, just kind of get to your point, we're talking about how to spend the money before we get it. I think we need to kind of think of how we're going to keep those two things moving forward at the same time, because it really, there's no benefit to building that out if you're not going to upkeep the other or vice versa.
Excuse me, but that is part of the school department's responsibilities. They chose to have that type of field. At that time, they said there were plans as far as the upkeep. That isn't something that should go into doing things that are the responsibility of various departments. As far as someone said, let's improve the roads, that's something that should be done yearly. This is one thing that's necessary, that will never be in any type of budget that's vacant submit. So when people start coming up with, well, my road needs doing, and let's do this, guess what? This is a one-time thing. Do you know how many fundraisers we have to have to do that? You gave this town, our town, for our kids, for us, a certain amount, and everybody's trying to figure, well, we have a dinner dance. You're lucky if you get 10,000. You know, we'll be buried by the time this thing would be built, unless there was, we hit big ticket or had a track or something, one or the other. Because there's no way that, as far as the fields are concerned, in planning this, they had the concern. Guess what? Now they have it. Now it has to stay in the budget. Because I hear that across the way. Oh, we can do this with this. Guess what? At last, we will have a field where there's not upgrade. If you call taking a couple of porta-johns and upgrade, let me tell you, you don't have to worry about going underneath the bleachers anymore, or the horrible porta-johns, or having kids going to work. Coming back to school at Denver bathroom is nonsense.
It's not safe.
No, it's not safe. Oh, absolutely. Safety is important.
All right, so we're pretty much all set now on the one-time development agreement. We know where that's going. Decommission,
Could I just raise a point on this, Mr. President?
on the decommission.
On decommissioning, Councilwoman, actually, the second thought, I think Councilman Bonamoni should actually stand on this meeting. She brought it up. I'm sorry, I should have.
I had attended the workshop for the planning board, and as I stated to them, I don't understand why the town would be on the hook for any removal of any solar farm. If the developer walks away, it becomes the landowner's problem. It is not the town's problem to remove this project. If we have a business come into town, we don't take over cleaning up their mess when they leave. I think it's important we do get some money up front in case there's an issue that we need to go to court. But it should not fall on the town, this decommissioning. This is not our problem. This is not our land. And that was the point I made with the planning board. And they kind of all went along with that.
Mr. President, to follow up that point, again, the developer wasn't there, I wish they were at that, only because the planning board was really struggling with the idea of there's no satisfactory way in their mind to establish an amount that they can be satisfied, to their satisfaction, not to the developers or anybody else, but to their satisfaction, that they could put a dollar sum that they could be assured would be sufficient 20 years from now. So, one of the thoughts that got floated, instead of having this being a decommissioning bond, have it be a decommissioning penalty. 20 years of a decommissioning bond penalty. 20 years from now, if it's not moved, you lose the money. And the owner's still going to have the burden, the town can still take the owner to court and force the owner of the land to remove it. And if the owner walks away or goes bankrupt, maybe it defaults to the town, then it's the town's problem, but they own the land and they're cleaning it up. But the money's a penalty that gets, that was the idea. And maybe now you focus on a penalty amount. I'm not saying you have to do that, but that was kind of, the planning board was really struggling with this because they don't know how a peer review person, engineer in this day and age, they don't believe an engineer can come up with an accurate amount.
You don't know, but,
So I throw that out only because it was brought up the town planning board, and I think if I did bring it up, they might be remiss.
well, solar's been around for a while. It's really moving now. And so there is no record of how do we dispose of this, because we haven't got the 20 years yet. So we don't even know, in 20 years from now, we don't know what this, it could be something that is so cheap and easy for them to recycle them that we don't know about. We, any of us know what we're going to go in 20 years, none of us will be sitting here. So, I had that same concern, this is Bob earlier. We're focusing a lot on the decommissioning, and we want to hold the money so that we can tear it down. The only time I would be concerned is if we build it on, or we lease it and it's on our land, and they walk away from it. Now it's on our land, now it's our responsibility. Most of these, we've heard tonight, that they're 20-year agreements with National Grid or ISO. So the chance of them going away within 20 years is slim, very slim, I think. But it's their responsibility. And so I know last, or 2 weeks ago, or 2 months ago, whatever, when they were talking about the decommissioning fee and what they were going to charge. Mrs. Walensky said it was a punitive number, or no, Mr. Rossini said it was a punitive number. Mrs. Walensky disagreed with him. Well, I tend to agree with Mr. Rossini that the decommissioning number that we want is a punitive number. It's a big enough number that makes them so they can't walk away from this project. And so maybe that gets to the point that there's a penalty charge if you don't take it down. You're still going to take it down, or the landowner that's left with it is going to have to take it down or pay a fine because now it's on his property. He's responsible. But yeah, I agree that it's tough to tell someone, you're going to take it off your land. We can do that. We have zoning laws that address that and everything. But we should not be responsible for anything on individuals' property unless it creates or it shows that there's this huge hazard to the town. But in my mind, it would still fall back to the landowner or the developer, whichever the case may be. It could be one and the same in some cases, where they buy the land and so they own the land and they develop it as well. But it's not something that the town, and I'm not saying not to put something in decommissioning. I think we need to have something in there, like I say, lack of a better term, a punitive amount, to make sure that they can't just walk away from this thing, that they have ownership in taking this thing down when its useful life is done.
But the point that I was trying to plan board wants you to be aware of, do you want that bond to be a penalty that they lose as opposed to an amount to fix the property? That's the difference. The decommissioning bond penalty, failure to decommission bond penalty, whatever that number is.
So just change the word, just a decommission.
So if you say it's a penalty, so if the person doesn't do what they're supposed to do in 20 years, they pay a penalty. That's what the planning board was talking about. And yeah, maybe the town would have to go in there and do it. The town would do it, then they lien the property, and they make, so that just like a house that goes dilapidated, the town would do it. But this would be in addition to that. This would be money that would be sitting on the table that they would lose. That's what the planning board was talking about. And I'm not necessarily recommending one over the other. I'm just saying there's this whole dispute about how much to put in the decommissioning bond. And from what I'm being told by planning board members who are engineers, electrician, it's very hard to find. It's very hard to define what is a valid number. So since peer review, so you may have to determine that number by peer review and not make the decision on that number. Okay, I would be hard pressed to make that decision yourself.
Because part of the issue is, and I don't know, but I know we've had the discussion that if you have a bond, you got to be renewed every year. Do all bonds have to be renewed every year, or can you buy a long-term bond?
The applicant had indicated that there was a new product on the market.
And actually, I did just send, I apologize for not being able to send it earlier, but there are solar decommissioning bonds that are specially designed for these situations, and I sent a copy of it to the solicitor and to the town administrator that are essentially for the life of the project. I can't tell you I'm a bond expert, but I know they're written specifically for this, as opposed to the garden variety payment bond or performance bond, which is annual renewable. And the other thing I would mention on behalf of the developer to the solicitor, there had been some discussion at the last meeting, or perhaps the one before that, about a concept of a security deposit for unpaid amounts, and the developer would be amenable if the amounts are reasonable to a combination of some form of cash escrow and then a decommissioning bond as well.
And this whole bond issue, bonding companies are not in the business to pay out, no matter what their Moody's rating is or whomever rates them. So I think we came up with the idea of an amount to avoid calling in a bond and going through the legal process and trying to get the money to remediate the ongoing problem. And I just want to remind everybody that we have an obligation to remediate this property because we created a zone overlay which enabled this developer to come into town, or some other developer to come into town. So honestly, I think there's culpability here about making sure that should something go awry, 10, if we open for another 10 years, 20 years from now, that there is funds available for us to make this property return it as close as we can back to its original state.
Yeah, I want to agree with Councilman Zawinski there. To me, the decommissioning piece is probably the most important, if not the most important piece of this document, because, you know, in 20 years from now, if, you know, green development goes out of business and a bond becomes worthless, I mean, those things are volatile. So we need to make sure that the town is protected so that we can remediate and repair if have to. I'll be here in 20 years, and I don't want to see 20 years from now we could have done something to prevent a hazardous condition, a Superfund site. You don't know what the long-term effects of these are, so while it's hard to speculate what the recovery cost is down the line, it's also something we have to keep in mind that, yeah, whether it's a penalty or something, it should be a cash bond. We should have some type of ability to evaluate it every 10 years or something. Maybe at 10 years we review the decommissioning cost and see if it's adjustable. I know some communities in other parts of the country are looking at that. But I think the amount of funds that we have on reserve, I think, are important because I can guarantee you we're probably going to need them down the line.
If I may follow up on that, Mr. President, Councilman Ozier, Town of Burrillville went through this, and they looked at the state of New York's system of setting bond decommissioning amounts per megawatt. And what New York had a range, and of course it all depends on the topography of the setup. I know it can anywhere from 30,000 to 70,000. 70,000 can be prohibited, can kill a job. I get that. Town of Burrillville settled on a 3,000 per megawatt. It was a 2.5 megawatt small development comparison, with a 1.6% inflation factor built in every year. So in order to avoid the inflation factor, that's why we have been speaking about putting it into an interest-bearing account. But I forget what page it's on. Your last page, probably in the book. We can't even entertain that. Or 5,000. Yeah, I know. In the back, it was, it was totally different. So 5,000 per megawatt, doesn't even make any sense at all. So I think that we have to come up with some type of decommission amount per megawatt. I think 5,000 is grossly inadequate. So we're going to have to come up with something for this to see. Did I say 30 on Burrillville? Let me just double check. Yeah, it's 30. So I think we have to come up with something else.
Can I ask a question? And it may not be my business, but your contract between the landowner and the company, do you have anything in there as far as their responsibility? If you were to walk away, is there something in your lease agreement with the landowners that they would take on the decommissioning?
No, it'd be just the opposite. As a condition of the lease, the tenant, the developer, project owning company is obligated to decommission the project.
Okay.
But what if?
But if they're still in business, but if you walk away, the landowner has to assume that it's now their problem.
Correct. And every lease is different, and every lease is negotiated differently. Some would ask for some sort of surety. Other times, they're comfortable enough without. They're looking at scrap value, all the same sort of evaluation the council is doing, just perhaps coming to a different conclusion. It may help in the analysis, a couple of things that were mentioned. These are not investment bonds or junk bonds. These are surety bonds. This is basically insurance companies that are in the business of providing payment or performance bonds for building hotels, construction projects, things. So it's a little different. I don't think it necessarily has the same volatility that you were concerned about. The last figure that was discussed last meeting, or perhaps the one before, was 30,000 a megawatt, which in my experience is a very significant number. The developer is not opposed to that number, but putting all of that in cash, and I haven't seen the New York references you're talking about, Mr. Vice President, but I would be very surprised if any municipality in any state anywhere was requiring 30,000 a megawatt in cash. It would be prohibitive and would crush almost any project, which is why the developer is suggesting some combination, 200,000 in cash, which the town can use as its security deposit, so to speak, or to have immediate cash funds, and then with a surety bond designed for decommissioning, in substantially similar form to what was said, designed to decommission solar projects.
I brought this up in the past, and I get your point about bonds, but to the extent, after 2008, you can't assure that any bond is going to forever last how it is. Aside from bonds and, yeah, whatever. The other issue I brought up a while back is that the decommissioning fund shall be calculated by an independent firm selected by the town, but the cost should be borne by the applicant. So I know we're saying peer review. Have we actually looked as a town at what the decommissioning is, short of just Googling or reaching out to whoever? Have we actually contacted a firm and tried to figure out where this range should be? Because it's in our ordinance, so I'm just trying to see if we're enforcing what's actually in our ordinance.
Tom, can you address that, Tom? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the peer review process, so that's why I don't know if that is.
Yeah, we have not looked at talking to firms directly about it. We're going to take it on a case by case. Well, the draft ordinance that's coming to you will be taken on a case by case basis with peer review as we go along. But one thing I want to correct: Barville just did get a cash payment for in full 100% because of the project on 102.
How large is that
It
project?
was 2.5 megawatts.
Yeah.
It could have been 3,000 with that inflation rider, but they calculate that out for 20 years or 25 years, and that's the cash payment that they got.
That's over 30,000. I have a copy of the check.
It's 30K, it's 2.5 megawatts,
Yeah.
so it's
The developer paid upfront cash.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Paul was saying it was 3,000 per.
Oh no, it's 30. 30.
Okay, 30 with inflation
I'd
rider.
say, let's make it perfectly